Alright guys, let's talk about Diablo 4 Season 3 is just around the corner, and let's talk about what more than likely will be getting buffs, as well as the nerfs. So, let's go ahead and show off this picture here, and I think this picture is very important. This was actually taken by Yugioh, so shoutouts to him. This was actually at the Blizzard headquarters, and this is one of their things that's posted for the people that are working on the game. And we're talking about their post-launch goals. They have these 4 pillars. The only one that's important is the one on the far right saying refresh the meta. So they want to actually change up the meta. So, well, we already know pretty much what is the meta right now. The Barbarian with the Hoda Barb is just so out of control in terms of its power versus any of the other classes in the game. Heck, you have Elon Musk over here tweeting out saying character balance sucks. You might as well rename the game from Diablo to Barbarian. Bruh. And while Elon Musk doesn't like work on the game, he's a very popular figure, and if I was Blizzard, I would be like, yo, Elon, you want to come do the game balance? Because that would be awesome to have someone do the game balance that maybe doesn't normally play some of the classes, and he could probably buff up the Druid quite a bit, because I think the Druid actually needs a massive buff as well. But nonetheless, there is no question that the Barbarian is far exceeding the other classes, and while some people may really enjoy playing a very specific build because it is the best, I'm talking about like the Hoda Barbarian over here, they want to actually refresh the meta. So if we were to look at the Barbarian, what skills are actually going to be used? I'm going to be mainly focusing in on the core skills in this video, talking about buffs and nerfs, but we can make a separate video talking about like the uniques of the game, because that is kind of going to be a longer video, I think, if we just include it here. And by the way, I don't have any secret knowledge. I'm not giving you guys secret Diablo partner information, but what I will do is gather up all your guys' comments, and I'm going to make some suggestions to Blizzard as a partner to give them some feedback for, of course, Season 3. That's kind of the point of this video, but there are things that we can more than likely expect as, well, there are some things that if you play the game long enough, you kind of realize there's a trend with not only Diablo, but other action RPGs. So, again, this is one of their pillars, is to refresh the meta. So with Barbarian, without a doubt, Hoda, more than likely, next season will be taking some sort of a nerfs. And while I don't like nerfs, at the end of the day, having to buff all the skills to reach the level of Hoda, it's probably much easier just to lower the Hoda Barbarian, and that's because it's just way too powerful. The numbers are hitting for in the billions, you can hit in the trillions, and it's maybe just too much in the game for things to hit for these kind of crazier numbers that we've seen. I mean, I think that there's numbers that just go so far off the screen with like some of like the things that you could do basically with like the overpower, and some of the things that you can do with like death blow before, when you can have like these bleed stacks. It was pretty crazy what you could do with a Barbarian in like Season 0, where you could do like, I don't know, quintillion numbers. Like, it doesn't really matter. There's nothing that has that much HP. Maybe in the Abattoir of Zir, they have like those crazy numbers now, but those essentially got kind of changed, and Hoda just hits for way too much. If you're hitting for like a billion, the rest of the classes just can't keep up, so more than likely I expect Hoda to actually get nerfed. Now, what will actually get maybe buffed with the Barbarian? I think Whirlwind is one of the most iconic like skills for the Barbarian from Diablo 2 and Diablo 3. Whirlwind probably will be receiving some sort of buffs. Now, I understand at the highest level of Diablo, they use Whirlwind to swap the weapons, and then they use Hoda. It's still a Hoda Barb, it's not a Whirlwind Barb, right? And that doesn't have like the same identity in terms of the way it's played. So Whirlwind is probably going to be receiving some sort of buffs, as well as Rend. I think Upheaval and Double Swing are in relatively decent spots. If you guys haven't tried out these skills, these are great. But if you're interested in maybe playing Whirlwind, I would hold off on playing and making, that build until perhaps Season 3, when these could receive some buffs. Now, like I said, I did want to make a video talking about the uniques, and I'm going to make that a separate video, otherwise this video will be half an hour long. But like things like the 100,000 step, Gore's devastating grips, these could all definitely be buffed in the future, and I think that would be a really great change. But at the end of the day, I think going into Rend or going into Whirlwind could be good. There is even supposed to be a Frenzy build, but even if you get that unique amulet, the thing is still very weak. So I think Frenzy could be something that we could maybe see some sort of a buff to one of like the unique amulets. I mean, getting plus like 6 ranks still doesn't make this thing do enough damage to the point where it actually feels good. So that's what I would say the Barbarian is in terms of its state over here. So let's go ahead and go to the next class, and let's give you guys some gameplay of one of the classes I want to talk about now, which is going to be the Druid. So as far as Druid goes, what are like the actual skills that people are using? So right now, the most meta skill is Shred. It's got a weird playstyle. It's not very like friendly to play because you have to like move to activate like the Blurred Beast. It's kind of difficult to play, I would say. And then we also have the Pulverized Druid, which I think is in a relatively decent spot. And then there's also the Wernado Druid, which was really popular in like Season 0 and Season 1. The other two skills, I would say Landslide and Lightning Storm don't see that much play. Now, obviously you can activate these off of other things with like Nature's Fury, but for the most part, no one really wants to play channeled skills. I feel like channeled skills, if you ever played Inferno, please comment down below and let me know that you've played it, and I want to know your thoughts on that skill, because I think that skill is so far underwhelming that like no one realistically wants to ever play a lot of the channeled skills in the game. And that's because the way that Diablo is designed, you have to hold still in order for it to kind of build up, to ramp up, to get your damage. And even when you get your damage up, you're still holding still, so then all these explosions will just one-shot you, because sometimes if you play the higher tiers Abattoir Z, sometimes you literally cannot see your characters because you have to like pull in groups, and it's just not realistic for most people to actually do. So channeled skills in general probably need a massive rework, with the exception of Whirlwind, because you can actually move. So maybe these need some sort of treatment to have like some sort of mobility, or if you're using, let's say, Incinerate or any channeled skill, maybe you can like teleport. That would be a great suggestion for like Inferno. Like Inferno reduces the cooldown of your teleport, you know, by like 90% while you're channeling it or something. The reason why is, again, you need to move out of the way, and when you do that, you lose all of your damage, you lose your like inner calm stacks, which is basically going to be used with channeled skills. So I think it's a kind of a problem. So I would say in terms of nerfs, I don't know if Druid really needs that many nerfs. I would say, if anything, they really need some buffs in the department of maybe like Lightning Storm, because some of these skills see like less than like 1% of play realistically in terms of like the end game. But another problem that Druid massively has for Season 3 that I do think should be addressed is a lot of these like damage reduction, damage while in Werebear, damage reduction while in Werewolf. The main problem with that is a lot of the builds want you to swap. They want you to go into these other things, right? They want you to transform. And in between that second, while you're not the Werebear or the Werewolf and you have all these bonus armors and stats to it, once it's not on, it feels like you're almost like instantly dead when you're trying to activate like Bulwark or something. And it feels really squishy, and it's weird because you normally think like a Werebear while using Bulwark would be, you know, tanky. But all these bonuses, again, cause some sort of like problem. And on top of that, all the rolls become really nasty to roll on Druid. So this is something that I'm going to give feedback. And again, let me know your guys' thoughts on anything that we're mentioning. But I don't know if you're going to be able to realistically fix Lightning Storm, but you can definitely fix Landslide because you just activate it, right? And it can just activate multiple times. But as far as it goes, I would say Lightning Storm, it would be the one that I would love to see some crazy changes to the skill. Not only like you know, giving it way more damage to make people want to actually play it, entice them a little, but also to actually make it realistic in terms of being able to use it. So maybe you can move while doing it or something. I just think that it needs to be changed. Otherwise, people won't realistically use it. But as far as that goes on Druid, I would like to see more of a companion build. That's not just like Poison Creeper only, because that's kind of how it's played. You know, the rest of the stuff is just activating it because you have more pets, and there's like a legendary aspect that gives you more damage based on the amount of pets that you have, right? Another thing that I think needs a massive upgrade with the Druid, and by the way, I should have probably started the video with this, but I have every single class level 100 this season. I'm not biased towards any class. Like, I play every single class. I've played every single build. And the Dolmen Boulder Druid, which we got this brand new unique that makes this boulder spin around with this hurricane, I got so excited. But it doesn't do any good realistic damage when you compare it to the other things that are offered in the game. Another thing is with Hurricane, there's an aspect that increases the damage as you have Hurricane. The problem with this is it has to refresh itself at some point, and the refresh actually resets the entire stacks of the extra damage. So it's like it's counterintuitive to actually gain this ramp up in damage. So I think that would be kind of cool. I mean, in theory, though, it probably needs to be capped, because if it didn't have a cap, then you can infinitely do this, and then it would get infinite damage, which would be the same thing that Gores had, and the Gores had to get nerfed because of that. So it probably needs a cap, but realistically, it needs to be able to do good damage. This was such a cool idea for a build, though, so credits to the creativity, but in reality, I don't think it was tested enough, kind of like Esador's Overflowing Cameo. But as far as Human Druid, I think Human Druid is probably the one thing that could be looked at in terms of it being some sort of a buff, again, with these two skills. And the Dolmen, because it was a cool idea, but as far as execution, same thing with Rabies. I feel like Rabies is a very underwhelming skill, especially since, as far as I'm aware of, you don't even like run it in a lot of the builds that you would want the Poison Shred Druid in anyways. So it's kind of weird the way it's designed, because it's just the way that it works. But try not to go too in-depth with every single character because then this video would be way too long. Let's talk about the Necromancer. So as far as Necromancer, what would I change in Necromancer? Necromancer actually has the most variety. Like almost everything sees a relatively decent play except for Blood Surge. So maybe some sort of buff on Blood Surge, like with the Speaker's Wrath. That thing doesn't really work because it doesn't proc there's a thing where every X amount starts to overpower or something. Yeah, if you have 5 stacks. Now it doesn't proc it off of like your minions doing it. That would have been a really nice change. So hopefully that can get kind of buffed. But that's the one skill that I think could get buffed. As far as nerfs to the Necromancer, what I expect to see, and again, I'm not going to say that I have secret information, but Blood Mist, the Infinimus, probably would be something that they would look at if you're a game designer. Having people be invulnerable pretty much most of the time, maybe not be the greatest decisions for, you know, making harder content, because if they're just immune the whole time, well, how are you going to actually have a challenge? But I would say Necromancer's in a pretty good spot, minus minions. That's the one thing. Sever could probably use some sort of buffs too. But as far as minions go, I just don't like the Ring of Menelin. I think that having like the idea of you have to proc lucky hit chance to actually do damage feels kind of bad. So I think overall what they could do is make minions a lot more viable, not requiring you to do so much work. More of like a Diablo 2 or a Diablo 3 style minion build is I think what people definitely want. You can maybe look at some of the uniques. You can maybe modify the Ring of Menelin just to have just massive damage. And even like the Death Speakers, this thing I was talking about, the Blood Surge, it doesn't seem to do like really insane damage. I wish it did, but that would be something where I could say I could definitely receive some sort of buffs over there. Now as far as Rogue goes, almost all the core skills are in a pretty safe spot, minus Flurry. So Flurry probably on the block to get some buffs. I would love to see some sort of rework to Barrage or Rapid Fire. I feel like these are two similar skills. I want kind of like a multi-shot. You know, that's kind of a fan favorite. I feel like they could definitely deserve a spot for that. There's also another build that never really got to see the light of day, but it was actually designed in the game, which was Shadow Step. So Shadow Step originally was supposed to play like Flicker Strike if you played Path of Exile, where you had these special mods that would increase the damage as you kept on getting kills with Shadow Step, and then you can infinitely kind of stack it and get some insane damage. It would probably be kind of OP, I'm gonna be honest. Maybe they cut it at the very end because they're like, okay, this is way too good. But just for one season, it would be kind of cool. I mean, you have Hoda Barb doing so much damage. I think it'd be cool that let some other classes have some like really cool builds. This would be definitely something more unique as well, because you're not even using a core skill. In fact, there's even like glyphs and stuff that would increase your non-core skills. But like, what rogue build doesn't use core skill for all of its damage, right? It's just not realistic. But as far as nerfs go, I mean, we all probably expect the Tybalt bug to get nerfed, so I expect that to be completely changed, and I think that's the only thing that makes Rogue good. Now, another thing is that like 99% of Rogues will play close quarters. It's just like too good to not play. So this could be actually getting nerfed, or some of these could receive a massive buff. So either you nerf close quarters and you buff up all of them, but still, I think that Rogue would be in a kind of a bad spot when you don't have the Tybalt bug, because that is going to be a massive thing that I think a lot of people will be upset about once it does get nerfed. But I think in reality, that thing needs to be nerfed. It's out of control in terms of what it can do. So I think overall, Rogue needs some extra buffs, and I think they need some buffs in the unique department. Like, who's playing Eyes in the Dark? Who is playing most of these uniques? Like the Wind Force. You have some really cool OG items that I think that could definitely receive some sort of a buff. I know we have the Rain of Arrows build, so that was kind of cool too, but I think Wind Force definitely needs some love over there. It's an OG Diablo item, and the fact that the legendary power you're sacrificing to, your double-handed aspects over there, it's just not nearly as good as it should. I think it can always knock down. It should maybe even have the potential to maybe a low lucky hit chance to like instantly stagger a boss. Have this unique actually feel unique. Make it do something. I think it'd be really cool that like automatically knock down, the first time a target takes damage. Just something unique about Wind Force, because having it on a lucky hit chance on a percent off a lucky hit, yeah, it's just not realistic. I know right now with Tybalt you can get it to proc quite often, but also maybe looking at some of the basic skills. I know it's pretty much just been puncture for the most part, but because of close quarters, some people I've seen them use, I think it's Blade Shift that gives you extra resistances. That could be something that people use as well. And then also the Sorceress. So what would I change with the Sorceress? So as far as Sorceress goes, okay, Incinerate needs like just massively buffed. I don't think people are going to use it regardless though, because of the way that it is designed. Again, holding still channeling is just, it's outdated. No one really wants to play this realistically in this day and age, because again, the way the Diablo is designed, you have these explosions and you got to ramp up your damage. I think Incinerate needs probably a rework on it, but even if you massively buff the damage, I don't think people will play it. Fireball's in a pretty decent spot, I would say. Frozen Orb could use some damage. Ice Shards maybe could use a little bit of love too. I feel like Cold's a little bit lackluster. And then Chain Lightning and Charged Bolts. I've seen some builds with Lamb Instants. It's okay. Right now, no one wants to play anything but Ball Lightning because Ball Lightning is just way too overpowered. Because I feel like with Sorceress, we can look at the mastery skills as well. So I would like to see a little bit of love for the ice. And the thing that I'm actually worried about the most with the upcoming Season 3 on the Sorceress is what is our source of vulnerability? Because it's basically just Frost Nova, right? After we lose out on the Vampiric powers, if we don't get some sort of power for the Sorceress, I could definitely see it kind of becoming a problem in the game. So I would like to see some sort of change with the Sorceress in terms of vulnerability more so, and I'm going to give them that feedback. Just some extra source of it, or just give them the exploit glyph that all the characters have, where it's like the first time you hit a target, it's vulnerable for 3 seconds. That's kind of all I would really need for that to be kind of solved. But as far as the core skills go, yeah, Incinerate just needs like the biggest buff ever. Heck, you can buff all the rest of them. I think Ball Lightning, we kind of all expect to be actually get nerfed. And the reason why is if they come out with more tough content, this thing actually makes the servers lag a lot because it actually attacks so many dang times. The server has to register all these ticks. So Ball Lightning will more likely get nerfed in Season 3, whether they nerf the amount of ticks or the damage, or they just make it unplayable, basically, because I could understand it. The reason why they want to nerf it is because if you have the servers lagging to the point where like your character freezes for several seconds, which like, you know, I think Rax uploaded a video on that as well, where he's like, he couldn't play because it's just ticking too much. So this is definitely something that will probably be getting nerfed in the future. But what I find more interesting in general in Diablo is like, we don't use a lot of the ultimates in the game. But as far as other skills, I could see Meteor getting a massive buff. No one really likes enjoying playing Firewall, but maybe they could do some cool things with Meteor in the next season. So that would be awesome to get buffed. But literally all the core skills could get buffed, maybe with the exception of Fireball, as that's a relatively decent skill at the moment. In fact, I want more uniques in terms of the Sorceress to actually be viable. I would say the Oculus has some cool potential over here, but the problem is it just simply lacks the amount of damage that you would want to actually get. And like things like the Endless Rage, where you get the extra 3 fireballs, that's 1 out of every 3, so it's like 1/3 of the actual value. And on top of that, you're using a two-handed in that. So it'd be cool to see maybe some different choices, and specifically like Flame Scar is absolutely terrible. Inferno in general is just like such a bad thing. But there's also the Esidora's Overflowing Cameo, which I really felt like was undertested. If you look up builds that actually tried this, I've never seen anyone actually successfully make a good build with this. I uploaded the video because I was super excited. I got like 1,000 int, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna get this massive amount of damage because I'm gonna stack int. I'm gonna be an int stacker, kind of like how you'd be a attribute stacker in Path of Exile. I was actually super excited to make this build, and when I played it, it was absolutely super underwhelming, disappointing. I mean, it doesn't even have crit. Like it could have had crit on like the roll on the like item. They could have given it some insane amount of damage. On top of that, like the crackling energy damage just wasn't there. So I expect hopefully this to get a massive buff. This and Inferno are 2 things that I felt like were designed in the game. Again, even with like the Dolmen Stone with the boulder spinning, like you made these brand new things and they are so incredibly terrible. So hopefully in Season 3 we can see some sort of buffs. But anyways, that's kind of what I expect to get buffs as well as nerfs in Season 3. Would love to know your thoughts down below, and like I said, I'll be writing up a guide, so definitely comment down below, and I will relay some of that information if it's valid, because if you're telling Blizzard to buff Hoda, I'm probably not going to relay that information. But if you have any other like glyphs or anything, ideas in terms of cool things, I would love to relay that information, so definitely let me know your thoughts down below. But if you guys enjoyed the video, drop a like on it. If you're new here, hit subscribe, turn that bell so you don't miss out on more future Diablo and other gaming content. We'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.